Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff. Today's video is basically a double header of sublimation projects for summer. I am making sublimation flip-flops, and then after this video will redirect over to my friend Courtney at the Crafty Brick, and she will be making sublimation beach towels. If you are joining us live for the premiere, we are chatting over in the comments. If you're watching this sometime in the future, welcome as well. You can always leave comments below this video, and the link to Courtney's video will be below as well. If you don't know Courtney from the Crafty Brick, you are going to love her. She is full of just so much joy and happiness, so make sure you watch her video after this one. But first, let's make some sublimation flip-flops. This project is sort of both an easy project and a difficult project. The easy part is the sublimation. It's actually a super easy project to sublimate. It's a little bit more hard to assemble these flip-flops. So as you can see here, I have made a pair of flip-flops that are watermelon themed. So they just have this watermelon pattern on the bottom, and then I have added the straps. For this project, I'm using lemons, but you can get both this lemon pattern and the watermelon pattern for free by clicking the link in the description. So what are you gonna need to make this project? It's actually a fairly simple project to make, so you don't need that many things. If you do sublimation, you probably have most of these things around your house already. To start, you're gonna need your sublimation flip-flops. So they come basically in this form here. So they are cut out, so you'll pull them out, but you're gonna sublimate this whole thing at one time. I find it just works a lot easier. There are also some straps, which we will talk about later. But I did want to say that these flip-flops run a bit large. I think they're men's sizing. So I wear a size 7.5 in women's, and these are mediums, and they are just a hair big on me. I think I would be better off with the small. So just pay attention to that when you're ordering your flip-flops. You are, of course, going to need your print. I printed this on my Sawgrass SG-1000. So I was able to print a large enough piece of paper here. This is 11 by 17 to fit on my flip-flops. If you have only a smaller printer, you should be able to do this, but you're gonna have to hack it a little bit. So instead of just printing one big piece for your flip-flops, you may need to print two smaller pieces, and then with your flip-flops here, you're basically gonna wanna put it on a diagonal here so that you can fit your flip-flop on that 11.5 by 17 paper. So you can just hack it a little bit. You can cut around the edge and then tape it to your form over here when you go to press. I have to say though, I really love having a bigger printer. It has just made so many of my projects so much easier. So if you're in the market for a larger printer, I couldn't recommend that SG-1000 more highly. I really love it. Then I find it handy to trim down my transfer, and to do that I'm using a self-healing cutting mat, a big acrylic ruler made for quilting, but I use it all the time for paper crafts, as well as a rotary cutter. This way I can cut off all the white space around my image so I know that I'm not getting any of that white space onto my flip-flops themselves. You've got a couple options when it comes to adhering the image to the flip-flop blank. I'm actually going to use a combination of both spray adhesive and tape. I've now made like 5 pairs of flip-flops while testing a bunch of different things, and I have found that the combination works the best. At first, I just used the spray itself, and it actually did not work well enough to hold on to my image, and when I opened my press, my image shifted, and I got ghosting on my blank. So you can just use tape as well, but I do like how the adhesive really, because it's such a large piece of paper, I like that the adhesive also helps hold down the center of it. You can just use tape if you'd like, it should work, but I do kind of prefer having that little bit of extra adhesion in the center just because this is such a big print. When you go to press your project, you're gonna need a couple sheets of butcher paper. And then comes the assembly of adding these straps. So I am not gonna lie, I found this very difficult. So there are two options here. The first is a pair of pliers, which is what I'm gonna use. The second is a flip-flop strap tool. Now, I had high hopes for this thing. Other people are using them in videos, and I was like, awesome, that's gonna make it so much easier than the pliers. And I got this, and it doesn't actually work for me. So basically the idea is that you're going to open this up and then place the round part of the flip-flop inside the little clamp here. My problem is that this doesn't open wide enough for my flip-flops. So I actually contacted the company of this tool, and they're gonna send me a replacement. It didn't come in time for me to make this video, which is a little frustrating, but that's okay. Just know that this exists and that I think I just happened to get a dud, and it may make your life a lot easier. You can watch some other people's videos on using this tool. I really wished it worked because this is not so much fun, as you'll see, but this, for me, is not working for me right now, so I'm gonna set it aside and we're just gonna go with pliers. I really love using a quilting ruler for this because it just works so well to trim exactly where you need it. This is one of my favorite things I have in my craft room. Just like this. I just find it so much easier than using scissors. You just want to trim right up to the edge here, just like this. Of course, you want to make sure to keep your hands away from the blade, but it's pretty easy overall to do, just like this. And one more here. This really does help you know exactly where the edge of your image is. That way you are not you're not running into having like little white edges on your flip-flops when we go to press here. All right, now we're ready to adhere our image to our blank. So my image is very close to the size of my blank here. You want to make sure that the flip-flops are really seated well into that form. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of the spray adhesive here. I'm just going to spray it lightly onto my image here, just like that. Definitely breathe in those fumes. And then we're going to just place it here in the center. And you want to make sure at the top and the bottom especially, and I guess on the sides too, although I don't feel like it's quite as bad, you want to make sure that you're covering up the actual edge of the flip-flops. Again, you don't want to have like that little white piece where it didn't get an image on top of it. So like I said, I thought this might be enough. It wasn't, so I am going to add a few pieces of tape just to make sure it is secured. The big part you want to be aware of is when you're opening your press. So you want to open your press really carefully so that it doesn't, you know, lift up the image that you've added here, because that's the quickest way to get some really ugly ghosting on your project. So let's add some tape here. Just like this. I don't really have enough room to add it on the sides here, but I've done a couple of these this way now and it's been enough. This tape does not stick to this sort of neoprene side here. So for this project, I'm using my Wallapress from Heat Transfer Warehouse. I love the thing. I have it set to 60 seconds at 400 degrees. I have also turned the crank really far to open it up as much, quite a bit, because this is a very thick blank. If you have been pressing t-shirts or those sorts of things, you're not gonna be able to get your press closed. So before you heat it up, you may wanna go and do a test to make sure that you're at the right pressure level, because you don't want to get to it and not be able to close it and have to adjust it. So go ahead and test the thickness before you heat up your heat press, and then that way you can be good to go when you go to press your project. All right, I've got my heat press over here, so I'm going to add my butcher paper. I'm going to go ahead and push it in here, and I'm going to press. All right, it just beeped, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up here. I'm going to pull it back. It does smoke a little bit. And then I'm going to basically just leave this here until it cools a little bit. I really like that my Wallapress has this drawer. I don't know if you can tell, I'm pulling it out here, but it allows things to cool a lot faster because it's not sitting under the hot press. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this cool, and then we'll head back over to my desk and go ahead and see our flip-flop base. All right, I'm back at my desk. These things cool pretty quickly just because it's neoprene. So you can go ahead and peel back your image here. And we have our flip-flops. They turned out really cute. So just remove the base here, and I mean, it's so cute, right? These just turned out really cute. I don't know, I feel like fruit is just so perfect for summer. You can notice here that I had no ghosting because I did the spray adhesive and the tape, and the color turned out really great. All right, now it's time to add the straps. Definitely my least favorite part of this. Really hope that new flip-flop tool will help when I get it. But there are a couple things to know here. So when you're looking at these straps, there is a right strap and a left strap. So you wanna make sure this center part here, where your toe goes, is facing up. And then you'll see that there is a slightly longer piece on each side, right? So the way to know which one is which is line up those two with the holes, right? So if I line these up here, the top part of my flip-flop here does not hit this hole. However, if I move them over here, like this, and I line up the bottoms with the hole, the top one here aims at the hole. And that's how you know how you have your straps facing in the right direction. Now it's time to add the straps. And basically this is a force of will. It is a war of the universe. It is very difficult to do. I have some chronic pain issues in my hands. If you've been around any length of time, you'll know that. So I can tell you this is extra not my favorite part. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually gonna set my watch, and then I'm gonna fast forward because I don't think you need to watch me struggle through this whole thing, but I do want you to know how long it takes like an average person to do this, and why that flip-flop tool, should it work, is probably a better choice. I've watched several videos on making flip-flops, and everybody like pretty much every video sort of like skips through how long this actually takes. They're like, you see them start to struggle and then they're like, oh, I got it. And I just know that they've been struggling a little bit more than that. So I'm going to film the entire thing from the overhead view here, and I'm gonna start my watch so that we can see just how long it takes me to add these straps to these flip-flops. All right, let's get the stopwatch going here. We're gonna start. Okay, I have to be real. I've been going at this for 2 minutes and 15 seconds and my hands are really tired. So I'm actually going to pause my stopwatch and take a little break and then come back. All right, I'm back. We're gonna keep going here. I'm gonna go ahead and restart my timer. All right, y'all, I give up. I can't do it. My hands hurt too much. So I'm actually gonna have my husband assemble this. You can tell that these are just really difficult to assemble. So I'm gonna have him go do that and then I will be right back. Whew, okay, thanks to my wonderful husband for getting this other flip-flop assembled for me. They are done. So I both love and hate this project, let's be real. I really love how these sublimate, and I love the idea of making these for something like a wedding, with like the bride and groom and the date and everything on the bottom, so that people with, women dancing in their heels, they've got tired feet, they can throw on a pair of wedding flip-flops. I like the idea of creating a pair for a vacation, but I do not like the idea of assembling any of them. So it's really gonna be up to you on whether or not you want to make this project. I do think that flip-flop assembly tool makes things easier. So I'm probably not going to create a whole new video for YouTube here just about using that flip-flop tool, but if you head over to my Instagram, which I will link below, when that tool comes, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna see how easy it is, and then I will post a video there. So if you want an update on if the flip-flop tool makes this any easier, go ahead and follow me over on Instagram and you will find out there. There are a couple other things I wanted to mention about this project that I don't love. One is that it smells. Like, this is one of the stinkiest sublimation projects, and sublimation projects tend to be stinky. This is like neoprene times 10. It just really has a very strong smell, so you want to be sure you're working in a ventilated area and just be aware that things are going to stink for a little bit. The other thing I don't love is how much waste this uses. I just don't feel like the form needs to have this much waste. It just feels a little bit wasteful to me. Can we just cut this down, move those flip-flops a little closer together? I don't know. I feel like there's just gotta be a better way to do this. So that's my tutorial for making sublimation flip-flops. You can see on this one I'm sort of 50-50. I really like the look, I like how they sublimate. I think they'd be really fun for things like weddings or showers or those sorts of things. Hate the assembly, not my favorite. But if you want to give them a shot, I would love to know how it goes for you down in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, helped you decide whether or not you want to make these sublimation flip-flops. Next, we are heading over to Courtney's channel where she's making sublimation beach towels. And I get a lot of questions about how to make big projects, so you are definitely going to want to watch this because she has some really great tips and tricks. This video should redirect to her channel. If it doesn't, I will go ahead and leave the link below. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week.